Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Overrated. Today we're going to be talking about Uncharted 4. I love the Uncharted series. I also love pirates. Ain't nothing about this game I shouldn't like, right? With big games like this, there's always mumblings about it being overrated or whatever, so to figure out if Uncharted 4 actually deserves the 93 that it gets on Metacritic, we're gonna rank the story, characters, music, visuals, and gameplay in order from the worst to the best, and then give it our own overall rating at the end. This is totally my own opinion though, so don't forget to tell me how dumb and wrong I am about everything afterwards. Alright, let's go. In last place comes gameplay. Now before you get all your underwear up in chunks, let me explain myself real quick. I love playing this game. I've liked playing every Uncharted game. I find it to be an enjoyable experience. The climbing, shooting, swinging, driving, and swimming all feel incredibly smooth. Even though it's more than fun enough to keep me happily playing, the gameplay didn't feel like the strongest flavor going on in the game, and it didn't really evolve at all from the beginning until the end. Frankly speaking, I've tasted Uncharted 4's gameplay 3 times before now, and I gotta admit that it's kinda grown a little overly familiar. I did appreciate the addition of the grappling hook, and it made for some pretty stupidly fun moments, but it wasn't enough to make me feel strongly that Uncharted had really innovated in the gameplay department. Which, is fine. Don't need to fix what ain't broke. But even within the confines of this single game, you gotta kind of admit that it gets a little bit repetitive. Climbing's fun and all, but, well, there's a lot of it, and it's not exactly the most engaging activity either. You just kind of hold a direction and up you go. The game uses a lot of tap this button events too. I just don't like that. I was super happy to see that the world opened up a bit more than usual. I felt more like an explorer than ever before, able to probe about through all the smaller details and curiosities strewn out over the world. Uncharted 4 let me live out a tiny sliver of the dirty and glamorous life of a fictional archaeologist, and I loved it. The big letdown though were that the puzzle segments seemed to have taken a full step backwards. I really expected the puzzles to be brain-crampingly tricky and clever, but they kinda got dumbed down into memory games, solved quickly through trial and error. I didn't feel like I was using my brain as much as I was just kinda using my controller. The gameplay gets 16 points out of 20. And fourth is the music. I'm actually quite taken by the music and sound in Uncharted. It's heavy, like a huge guide punching you in the gut over and over, especially when guns start firing and explosions start rumbling in your ribcage. The staccato string work and stompy percussive rhythms get the heart pulsing right along with the action. But it takes the time to balance it out by letting the silent sounds of Nathan's scuffled exploration take center stage when they need to. Henry Jackman, the composer for the game, has some serious musical chops. The list of his work reads like the Christmas list of every wide-eyed music major I ever knew in school. But instead of directing high school choir practice, Jackman works basically on every summer's biggest blockbuster. His skill translated mostly pretty well to the video game medium, but it still feels very much like a cinematic soundtrack, meant mostly to support the game from behind the lines instead of being a consistently prominent player. But when one of the themes does kick in full force, it's like music to my ears. Yes, literally. It's like literally good music to my ears. There were a couple of sections where the music was allowed to just completely take over. The somber drive over a tropical mountainside with all the other sounds melting away into the background became the single most memorable moment in the game for me, and I give all the credit to the music. It gets 17 points overall. Coming in third are the characters. Nathan and the regular crew are back and as good as they've ever been. The cast's motivations run deeper and ring on a more personal note in their final chapter together. And their journey becomes about so much more than just finding the pirate's treasure. They've got layers to each of them, and the adventure for treasure is only the tip of their motivational iceberg. And they just feel so natural together. I refuse to believe that these characters aren't real, and they haven't lived long, witty lives together. The humor in Uncharted 4 is genuine, not too forced, like the writers were trying to prove that, hey, we got jokes over here. As for the bad guys, Rafe turns out to be a pretty serviceable villain, actually. He's easy to hate, but also oddly relatable, or at least I found myself sympathizing with him, and the poor guy just wanted to prove himself to the world, don't worry, Rafe, you'll get him next time. Oh. Yeah, he's a little bland, but if that's the worst thing that I can say about him, then I think we're doing alright. You should hear some of the things they say about me. No one talks about me. His partner Nadine, on the other hand, wasn't really that great. She had good personality, but her story and character didn't really feel complete, like she was only there to be an obstacle for the team. She was good at that, at least. The introduction of Nate's brother was pretty nice, but the flashbacks showing their childhood together didn't do that much for me. I know they set up the importance of family ties, which is a pretty major theme in the game, but they could have been a touch more concise and focused. Like, there's this part where an old lady just kind of falls over and dies in a house that the two of them break into, and they just run off. It just felt like a weird direction for the story to take for a quick sequence. Like, there's suspects number 1 and 2 for a murder, and they just run off in a foot race against the police. I don't know, it just seemed a little wrong somehow. Anyways, the characters get 17 points. They're mostly great, and the main cast is especially likable. A couple of small relationship cliche stuff sneaks its way in there, but to be honest, I mean, I've rarely come across a cast of characters that feels more real. In second place is the story. It was actually a bit of a slow burner for me. At first it kinda seemed pretty average actually. But over time, and even after I'd finished the game, I started to realize just how strong it is. There's so many layers. Layers! So it's like a huge onion. Layer number 1 is the search for the pirate's treasure. Okay, that's a pretty cool basic layer. Layer number 2 is Nathan's struggle to assimilate himself into a new lifestyle, and coming to discover and admit to himself what he really wants and what's truly important to him in life. Layer number 3 are the parallels between the pirates hundreds of years ago and Nate today, and their respective struggle to escape from an oppressive society and life. Nathan sees himself in them, and he has a couple of funny but depressing moments of introspection that show he's struggling to find happiness. And it's hard for him because he has a family that loves him, and he has a great job, and everything should be good. But at the core of it all, and the major theme of the game, is the focus on family. Brothers and wives, adoptive fathers, and eventually children come into Nathan's life, and he has a bit of growing up to do. The whole reason the treasure hunt began in the first place was the two brothers' desire to carry on the work of their deceased mother. This theme is reflected beautifully and tragically by the old utopian pirate society that succumbed to greed and quickly fell apart. Best friends and right-hand mates betrayed and killed each other over the exact same treasure that hundreds of years later would end up leading Nathan and his family closer together. In the end, the treasure was nothing more than the secondary prize to them. They had finished the family work, and that bond was stronger than the greed that had torn lesser men apart. That's beautiful. It's beautiful. I know, having different layers in a story isn't exactly a novel concept. Really, any good story should have them. Maybe to you, only one or even none of these layers will really matter as much as they did to me. Or maybe all of them will. But I think there will be something in Uncharted 4 for everybody, and it'll catch a hold onto a deep and meaningful part of their attention. It gets 18 points. In first place, of course, is the visuals. I mean, what else could it be? The most consistently great part of Uncharted 4 has to be the way it looks. I was honestly kind of embarrassed by how much better Naughty Dog's vision was than the best my imagination had to offer. I mean, it was literally more beautiful than I could possibly have believed it would be. The macabre pirate's last banquet, and the ship's graveyard, and the lost utopia of Libertalia, and so many other places just left me speechless. It almost felt like I was exploring holy ground, tenderly walking around and thinking that this is probably the best that console gaming will have to offer for a long time. And it's not just beautiful, it can get legitimately spooky at times too. There are some jarringly morbid scenes of the pirate King Avery's growing paranoia, and it gets pretty unsettling. And another thing that stuck out to me is how some really unique angles were used. It was a cool way of being cinematic without stealing away the control from the player. I mean, some of these locations were straight up meticulously built works of art. I feel like recommending the game to everybody just so I can share the view with them. And to keep things brief, the character models and facial work is just as impressive as the rest of it. The visuals get 20 points. I mean, what else is there to say? You honestly gonna try to tell me that the visuals don't get perfect points? To wrap it up, the game's good. The final chapter in Nathan's story couldn't have ended on a better note for me. Except maybe if they made an Uncharted kart game. I mean, they did it for every other series they've made. The post-game high was so strong for me that I couldn't decide if I wanted to go catch a flight down to the Amazon and explore, or sit back down on the couch and play it all over again. Our final score of 88 doesn't quite measure up to Metacritic's 93, so we're gonna say that the game is maybe a touch overrated. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't go out immediately and play it. It's really, really good. Hey, thanks for watching. Our list is maybe a bit different from how you'd put yours together, and that's cool. Tell us what you think. We'd like to know. And as always, feel free to suggest games that you think we should cover in the future. See you next time.